In this tutorial of Composr CMS version 11, we are going to be covering the installation of a brand new website. This tutorial only covers the fundamentals of installing Composr CMS, particularly on a Linux system. For instructions on installing on a Windows system or for other information, you may wish to check out the installation tutorials on composr.app. The first step is to download Composr CMS. Go to composr.app and in the navigation menu under Download, click Composr CMS. You will need to decide between downloading the Quick Installer or the Manual Installer. The Quick Installer is a self-extracting archive that automatically sets file permissions as it goes. You will probably want this one, but if for whatever reason you have trouble with the Quick Installer, the Manual Installer is an option as well. But if you use the Manual Installer, you may have to set file permissions manually. Be sure to also review the requirements listed further down on the Downloads page. The requirements will go over things such as which web servers are compatible with Composr CMS, what version of PHP you need, what PHP extensions you need, how much memory you need, how much disk space you need, what version of MySQL you need, and other miscellaneous settings. There is also an extensive tutorial on web hosting linked on the Downloads page, which you may want to check out. This tutorial will help you decide what kind of web host you should go with when running a Composr CMS website. The next step involves transferring over the files to your server. This is typically done using the file transfer protocol or some sort of online file uploading interface. Transfer the downloaded zip file of Composr CMS over to your server in the directory in which your website files are hosted. This is typically htdocs or www. After transferring over the archive, you will want to extract the contents of the zip file into that directory. Pictured here, you will see the three files that will be present after extracting the Quick Installer. If you downloaded the Manual Installer, you will see a lot more files than this. Now it's time to run the installer. Go to your base URL /install.php. It may take several seconds for the page to initially load as the installer runs initial checks of your web server environment. Once the checks are complete, you will see a list of detected issues that may compromise your install. Please review them carefully and fix any issues that you can fix. I do want to mention a common issue you may arise when trying to install Composr CMS on a Windows environment is you may see errors about PHP extensions being unavailable even when you have the extensions enabled in your PHP. If this happens, try updating your Microsoft C++ redistributable package on your system. This will often resolve those issues. Step 2 involves reading and agreeing to the Composr CMS terms and conditions. This is adapted from the CPAL license version 1.0. Additionally, you will find some options for telemetry in the bottom right-hand corner for you to set. If you wish to receive important updates about Composr CMS, you might wish to fill in your email address in the box. This will subscribe you to newsletters from composr.app. These are emailed roughly 3 to 4 times per year. Down below are radio buttons to allow you to choose which telemetry settings to set for your site. You can either send errors and statistics to the home site for the core developers to review. You can only send errors to the developers, or you could choose to send nothing at all. Additionally, if you would like your site to be featured in the site showcase on composr.app, you can tick the tick box saying tell Composr.app if you are okay with your site being featured. Note that this tick box does not do anything if you have selected do not send errors or statistics. For more information about what telemetry does, how it works, and what information is sent to Composr.app, you may wish to check out the telemetry tutorial on Composr.app. It gives a thorough and in-depth description about how telemetry works and how you can change the settings later on after installing your site. Step 3 of the installer involves choosing your forum and database driver that you want to use. In most cases, you will want to choose Composer's own forum, Composr, as your forum driver. If you have a forum already, Composr does have the ability to integrate external forums into your Composr site. This functionality is not officially supported, however, so you may need to hire a developer if it does not work to make it work. Additionally, you will want to choose your database driver down below. Composr CMS only officially supports MySQLi as a forum driver, but other forum drivers can be developed and used with Composr. There are additional options under Advanced Database/Site Network configurations, such as separating your external forum from Composr in terms of databases, or joining a multi-site network. These functionalities are also not officially supported by Composr CMS and may require the hiring of another developer for full compatibility. Before moving on to step 4 of the installation, at this point you'll want to create the database. A lot of web hosts for MySQL will have a tool called phpMyAdmin where you can go and create a user and a database. Another popular tool you might have heard of is HeidiSQL or MySQL Workbench. Any of these tools will suffice, but the key is you will want to create a user and a database, and the user should have all privileges to the created database. Be sure to remember the credentials for the user and the database because you will need to put them in on step 4 of the installation. Also, be sure to use a strong password when creating your user, and don't use the password that is pictured in this demonstration screenshot. The first part of step 4 in the installation involves general settings. First, you will want to put in your base URL. This is the URL to access the landing page of your Composr installation. Be sure to double check the HTTP section. Make sure it is HTTPS if you are using an SSL or TOS certificate on your web server. In this day and age, you really should be using an SSL TOS certificate, as not doing so will result in browser warnings being displayed to visitors when they try and visit your website. Next, you will want to put in your website email address. There should be an email address that members can contact for questions and concerns. Next, we have the maintenance password, not to be confused with the administration password. The maintenance password is used for maintenance scripts across your Composr site. These include the upgrader, the code editor, the config editor, and the rootkit detection tool. Be aware that brute force login detection is not integrated in these scripts. Therefore, your maintenance password should be very long and very complex for security reasons. Ideally, it should be at least 16 to 32 characters long, and it should be a mix of letters, numbers, and symbols. If you want to be very secure, you can also include symbols which cannot be typed on a standard keyboard. The next section of step 4 of the installation is the member settings. Here, you will define settings for the initial administration account. Specify a username and password here for the initial administration account. It is suggested that you do not use generic terms for the username such as admin, administrator, and so on, You should use something unique. This will make brute force attacks much less likely to succeed on the administration account. And since this is an administration account, the password should be very long and very complex, ideally at least 16 characters long, with a mixture of letters, numbers, and symbols. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can include symbols that cannot be typed on a standard keyboard. Next in installer step 4 are the database settings. Here, you will want to specify the database credentials for the user and the database that you created before installer step 4. For the host name, if you do not specify a port, then it will use the default port for the given database driver. In the case of MySQL, this would be port 3306. If you are not using a standard port, then when specifying the host name, put a colon followed by the port number at the end. The table prefix allows you to specify some sort of prefix to put on every table belonging to your Composr site. This allows you to have multiple different tables in the same database if necessary. This is not ideal, but some web hosts may restrict the number of databases that you can create, and so this allows you to put your Composr site inside an existing database. Under Advanced Settings, you will find cookie settings, which you can adjust for your Composr website. Most people will not need to change these. However, the one particular setting you might need to change is cookie days, especially if you live in the European Union or some other location that has strict regulations on data privacy. You may need to change the cookie days number to something like 365 for 1 year, depending on your legislation. There may be other settings that are present on step 4 of the installation, depending on what you selected in step 3, that are not covered in this tutorial. For instance, if you selected an external forum driver, then you would be prompted for the credentials to that forum driver, as well as the file path to that forum. Also not covered in this tutorial, there may be a setting on the installer that allows you to enable content translations. If enabled, you'll be able to provide translations in different languages for each piece of content that is added to your Composr website. And the site will automatically present the correct language according to a member's language settings. And now the fun begins. If you are running the quick installer, step 5 begins with the extraction of all of the files. This process is done in batches of 1000, and when the files are extracted, file permissions are also automatically applied. After the file extraction, or if you are using the manual installer, step 5 then proceeds on to the core install. First, it will run some basic checks, and then it will install the primary and secondary parts of Composr. If there were any warnings, they will be displayed on this step. Typically, the installer will automatically proceed to the next step after a period of time, but if there are any warnings, you will have to click the Proceed button manually after reading the warnings. On step 6 of the installation, the Composr forum Converser is installed. If you chose a different forum driver on step 3, you might get confused by this step. Composr has to install Converser even if you choose another forum driver in order to support core functionality such as members and profiles. On step 7 of the installer, critical modules are installed. These have to be installed before any other add-on, module, or block is installed because they rely on the database tables created by these critical modules. In step 8, the remaining add-ons, modules, and blocks are installed. This is done in increments in order to prevent server timeouts. When you first install Composr, it will install all available add-ons, modules, and blocks by default, but after you install Composr, you can then go back, whether through the setup wizard or through add-ons management, and uninstall the add-ons that you do not want for your site. On step 9, the installer performs some final tasks, such as preparing geolocation data, creating custom profile fields, and creating a default robots.txt file. Once you reach this step, your Composr install is complete, and it will prompt you for what you want to do next. If you choose Configure My Site first, which is the recommended option, you will then be redirected to the Setup Wizard. The Setup Wizard will allow you to set basic settings on your site, as well as choose the add-ons you want to keep installed, and set up a basic theme. If you choose Launch with Test Content, then test content will be installed on your site. Note that there is a section in the admin zone to allow you to install or uninstall test content at a later time, so you don't have to do it right now. Or you could choose Launch in a Blank State, which will simply take you to the website without any default content and without running the setup wizard. There is one final thing that you will probably want to do that isn't so obvious if you are running the Apache or Lightspeed web servers, or if you are running Nginx with Apache as a backend server. You should rename recommended.htaccess to .htaccess, or copy it into a .htaccess file within your root directory for Composr. Then, review what it has and change any directives that you need to change. For the most part, you shouldn't need to change anything. Doing this will ensure utmost security for your Composr website and will ensure that URL rewrites work correctly if you enable URL schemes on your Composr site. That concludes this tutorial of how to install a Composr CMS version 11 website. Thank you for choosing Composr CMS and enjoy your brand new shiny website.